Okay, stop me if you've heard this advice before, probably from your dad. Work hard and you will be rewarded. Is that true? I'm going to go with no. You probably guessed from my tone. And here's the real talk. Hard work without the visibility is just going to lead to you being overlooked. I know I've said this before in my last video, which I'll link here, but it bears repeating. Workplace success is not just about the quality of your work. It's about who knows you, who likes you, or maybe a better way to say it is who supports you, and how do you advocate for yourself. You know, I've been reading a lot of comments in my videos, and one of them shared stories about, hey, we're going above and beyond, and I'm constantly burned out, and I feel like I'm being taken advantage of. You know, that's not okay, but none of that really surprises me. And again, you need to balance all of that hard work with a good dose of self-advocacy so the right people know and support you. So let's talk about career advice that's probably holding you back. In this video, I'm breaking down a bunch of corporate myths that we've all heard for God knows how long that are probably holding us back. So from everything from work hard to stay loyal, I'm breaking them down in this video. I'm Rob. I am a 27-year-ish former corporate HR professional that has had the opportunity to work at some amazing companies throughout my career. And I'm on a mission to share what I've learned there with you in hopes that you can land your dream job, get that promotion, or just survive corporate America. So again, in this video, I am breaking down myths we've heard all of our lives that actually don't fit reality in corporate America today. Okay. Advice number 2 on my list of myths is that HR will help you resolve problems. Okay, I don't know if it's totally a myth, but it kind of goes back to that, is HR your friend or your foe? And here's the truth. HR is there to protect the company. Yes, that's true, but I also believe that a good HR person or a good HR department will balance being a strategic advisor to the business with being an advocate for the employee. Now, not all HR people and not all HR departments are created equal. So some lean more heavily toward being that advisor to the business, which looks to the employee population as that HR is just the protector of the business. But here's the thing. HR can give you a lot of good things, right? They can help you navigate your career. They can give you some good objective coaching. Or if you are dealing with a challenging situation, they can help you navigate it. But here's the thing. If you come to us with a challenging situation, as an example, let's just say it kind of leans toward a harassment situation. If you tell us something and say, hey, I'm going to tell you something, HR person, but I don't want you to do anything. We can't do that. If you tell us that, we have to act on it. We have to go look into something. And if we do find that it is actually occurring, we have to take steps to ensure it doesn't happen again. If we are aware of something and we do end up in some litigation in courtroom, we have to be able to defend ourselves as an organization and say, yes, when we were made aware of this, we took action. We don't want to find ourselves in a situation where we said, well, nobody actually had a complaint, or Bobby over here told me this, but he told me this in confidence, therefore I couldn't act on it. We don't want to be in a situation where we should have known there was a problem. So again, be careful what you say to HR, because sometimes we will have to act on it. We can't promise absolute confidentiality, but we will handle things with empathy, with respect, and with keeping the circle of people who know about the issue very tight, so that only people who need to know actually know about the issue. Now, some people in the comments have shared their concerns about, well, hey, I went to HR and it cost me a promotion, it cost me a job. And here's the thing. You can share concerns with us, but again, like I said a second ago, if you make us aware of something that is going on that is tangential to the concern you're raising, we again have to look into that. So yes, when you make a complaint of, again, to use the example of harassment, you are protected from retaliation. We cannot fire you or discipline you for making a complaint. Now, having said that, if you bring forward a complaint and then over here you're, say, stealing from the company, we can by all means take action on that because they're separate issues. So being protected from retaliation isn't a get out of jail free card. You're still going to be held accountable for, policies and procedures, conduct, all of that type of stuff. So keep that in mind. Again, I am a firm believer that a good HR department or a good HR professional will definitely be successful and a champion of an employee population. But again, not all HR people are created equal. Okay, the next one we've heard time and again, and that is do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life. Is that true? I mean, for some people it is, right? And my hat's off to them that they found something that they're actually good at, that they love, that fills their bucket, but also fills their checkbook. So sometimes passion doesn't always equal pay. So you have to do what you're good at and what the market values and seek that fulfillment elsewhere. I was watching a TV show the other night. It was a story about this woman. It was real life. It was a reality show where she stops her job at a corporate job that she was very good at and very successful at, and then transitioned rapidly into just being a full-time artist. Nothing negative about her art. It was actually quite beautiful, but she was also having trouble keeping the lights on and making ends meet. So think about that as, you may have to do stuff that doesn't really fill your bucket, but you're good at so you can pay the bills while you're working on something in parallel that is your passion. And hopefully one day you can make that transition between the two. But a lot of times our passions don't always fill our checkbooks. Okay, here's the next one. I'm not sure what number it is on my list because I didn't number my notes, but that's irrelevant. So the next one is loyalty is rewarded. Again, I think it used to be true back in the day, when our parents and our grandparents were in their careers. But today, I don't think it's true any longer. Companies may say these things as part of the recruitment process or anything, but at the end of the day, especially if we consider the backdrop of today with constant layoffs in both corporate and in government jobs, right? There is no loyalty there. The loyalty is one way for those people. The employees give their loyalty, but the companies are not. Either they do not want to be loyal or they are not able from a financial standpoint. So at the end of the day, you're probably just a number. And I think back to my time at Southwest Airlines. I think back to, why, one of the catalysts for me leaving was, the career trajectory, and that the company at the time rewarded longevity and loyalty. Was I loyal to the company? Yes, but you had to stay in a role 3, 4, 5 years before the organization would consider you for that next level. So that was a problem, and that was kind of one of several reasons I had left. And then here we are today. I started this series with the news that Southwest had laid off a bunch of people for the first time in its history. And see, again, people who worked there for so long it was jarring to them because they were loyal and felt that the company would always have their back. And unfortunately, that wasn't the case. So again, you always have that plan B in your back pocket. Even if you love your job, you're loyal to the organization. It's never a bad practice just to see what else is out there. Go on a couple interviews every now and then, and you may realize, hey, the grass isn't greener on the other side, and I want to stay here. I want to, again, continue to be loyal. But you never know when those layoffs will come or something else will happen that suddenly you will not be in that job anymore, and you need to have a good plan B at the ready to execute on. So think about that. Always have a plan B. Okay, this next one's a little off topic, but it's really speaking to those folks that are maybe laid off or unemployed, or maybe, they're in a toxic job or just looking for that next opportunity at another company. And that is, you don't have to spend 8 hours a day for your job search to be successful. I would recommend, and I've said this before in other videos, is, keep it to 2 to 3 hours a day maximum. You need to spend time on yourself. If you're in a layoff situation, you need to spend time on your mental health, maybe doing some skill building, networking, all that type of stuff. If you are currently in a role, I think back to my time looking for another job when I was unhappy in a role or at a company, and suddenly days would go by and that's all I would do is sit in my office and look at, at the time it was monster.com, career builder, all the things, just looking for that new job and new opportunity. And suddenly the day would go by and I had nothing to show for it, either in my work or in my job search. So again, God knows, I hope nobody looked at my internet history. But again, you really need to take a thoughtful approach to it. 2 to 3 hours a day, set a goal. I'm going to apply for 4 jobs today. Then I'm going to walk away and do something for myself or do my real job, all that type of stuff. And, I saw in the comments of another video is when people talk about panic applying, they're just applying to anything blindly. And they're often doing it half-heartedly, so it shows up in the application. So what do I mean by that? You could have a cover letter that's addressed to the wrong company for the wrong job. You could have a resume that isn't, tailored to fit the job you're applying to. All of that type of stuff will yield poor job search results. So if you're chunking it out into smaller increments each day, if you're in an active job search, you will focus more on quality than quantity, and it won't be such a soul-sucking task. And I promise that the quality over quantity will yield some better results. You'll get those interviews, and before you know it, you'll have that new job. Okay, the next one. This one, again, another one I've heard from my dad, from my grandparents and that type of stuff. And is that don't job hop. It looks really bad. And I'm reminded of a conversation I had with my boss when I worked back at Radio Shack headquarters once upon a time. And she was kind of telling me about her colleague and friend that, frequently job hopped, like literally 6 to 12 months, they'd be in a new company in a new role. And this was by design. This is how they leapfrogged over people. And they were able to tell a really good story of, in all of those transitions as to why they only stayed in jobs or at a company for a very short period of time. And it served them well. And if you're strategic about your hopping and not just jumping for, because, you don't like something or whatever it is, it can actually rapidly boost your income and give you more growth because you're learning different businesses, and you'll have a lot more momentum than somebody who stays at a company forever and, kind of just progresses naturally within that company, which takes a lot longer. Your raises are a lot smaller, that type of stuff. So one thing I would say is if you find yourself in an interview, be prepared to say why you made the transitions. And, I think about my own career, right? I was at Tesla for, 6 months, something like that. And I knew I walked into these interviews, particularly the interview I had with Boeing, and I was prepared to answer the why there. Why was I looking to leave after such a short time? And I had a really good rehearsed answer and a good authentic answer to answer that question. And it became a non-issue. Be able to articulate the why behind all of your career transitions, whether it's from job to job within a company or from job to different company, all that type of stuff. Make sure you have your why talk track down pat, and you'll sail through the interviews and it won't be an issue. And it'll actually pay off better dividends from again, a salary perspective, a development perspective, all of that type of stuff. Okay, the next one is just stick it out. And this is usually advice given if you're in a job you don't like, or you're in a job that's quite frankly toxic. You have a bad manager, or just the environment is bad. People will say, just stick it out. You don't want to be a job hopper like we talked about a second ago. But here's the thing. You've got to focus on you. You can't, unless this is like your 10th job in 2 years, that could be, a problem. But you could damage yourself more by staying in a toxic relationship with your boss or your organization than you would if you bounced and tried to get another job coming out of that. So I saw some comments that really resonated with me. They're actually heartbreaking stories where some of these companies and their environments are just demoralizing, and it just was crushing for their mental health. And that they've shared that after they finally got the courage to leave, it finally gave them some peace. And then they were able to show up better at a new organization, at a new role. So it doesn't always have to be that you have to stick it out for X amount of time. If you're in a bad situation, you've made a bad call for your career, then maybe it's time to move on. I'll give you a quick just anecdote from me, something that's not even on my resume. I was working at Radio Shack headquarters. I was pulled away to work, recruited away, I should say, to work at a place called Countrywide Home Loans. I was there for 3 weeks and a half a day. And on that half a day, I was so miserable over those 3 weeks. It wasn't what I was led to believe it was. It was horrible. I actually did this. I started typing to my boss, who I think I had met once, and I said, I'm leaving immediately. I'm tendering my resignation, no notice. Please forward my final paycheck, all the things. I hit send, and I was in the car before my desk phone would ring. I was out the door, and now I had a plan B lined up. I actually went back to Radio Shack. But I say that to say is that it just wasn't a good place for me. It wasn't a good fit. I made a poor decision. I worked on a plan to go back to where I came from. And funny enough, some of my clients at Radio Shack didn't even know I was gone. They thought I was on a long vacation, which is kind of funny. So I will be eternally grateful to the people I worked for back at Radio Shack for allowing me to come back. Okay, here's the next one. This one kind of sticks under my craw because I had an employee who used to work on my team that kind of fell into this. And the myth is that if you go out and get your master's, you will get paid more. That's not true. I mean, if you're trying to go for a role that a master's degree is required for that role, perhaps you will get paid more if you invest in and get your master's or a higher level degree. But here's the thing. A lot of people, and I had this person on my team, it was a bit of entitlement, that my words, not theirs, but they felt, the first part was funny. They wanted to go for their master's, and they wanted the company to pay for it. And we said no, because it actually fell outside of our normal college tuition reimbursement guidelines. So we got through that. Then they went, we kind of worked with them on their schedule. They went, and got their MBA. And then they came back and they expected that they would get a raise for that achievement. But the job they were in did not require or even prefer a master's degree. So think about that. I'm still a little dumbfounded, as you can tell, but if you want to go out and get a master's degree, an MBA, or whatever it is, bravo, go do it. I fully support that. I wish I had done that at some point, but I didn't. I stopped at my bachelor's degree. But you can't, the expectation of getting an instant raise or anything, I think, is just divorced from reality. Maybe some companies do it, none of which that I've worked at. Maybe some companies do, but I think by and large, you will see that just getting that higher level of degree will not inform an instant raise. Now, having said that, if you're going for a job where you've gotten your master's degree and you're applying for a job and it says master's degree preferred, you may then command a higher salary based on that as you're going through the recruitment process. But usually internally, if you're in a role, nothing changes about the role, but you get the master's degree, you're probably not going to get a bump for that. So if you do want to get those bumps internally, think about getting in-demand certifications, building real skills, taking advantage of those internal education and learning and development functions of the organization you work with. Those might better inform an internal promotion than saying get an external, a master's degree or what have you. Okay, in review, some of the comments I've read, on this topic were great, right? One is hard work equals more work, not more pay. How true is that, right? Somebody who works super hard, maybe they're head down in their cube or in their office or what have you, they're super efficient, they're known to be reliable and do quality work. The work tends to pile up, yet the pay doesn't always follow. So that comment actually resonated with me as well. And this one was kind of funny. If hard work paid off, the donkey would own the farm. How true is that? I never thought about it that way. That sounds like a good bumper sticker. And then lastly, I went to HR and ended up unemployed. My reaction to this one was, I bet there's a story there. You don't walk into HR's office. Nobody that ever came into my office has instantly gotten fired. So I bet there's a story there. But I'd love to hear from you. What is some of the worst career advice that you've ever been given? Let me know in the comments. I'd really love to hear. Okay, bad advice is everywhere, and your career success actually depends on a strategy, not just the hustle, right? So make sure you are doing that hard work. But like I said earlier, make sure you are visible. People know who you are. People support you, and you advocate for yourself, and your career will be on the right path. So again, my name is Rob. I am on a mission, like I said earlier, just to share what I've learned at those great companies with you in hopes that you will get that promotion, land your dream job, or just survive in corporate America. So until next time, take care. This video was recorded and produced by Just Talk Studios, the premier video podcasting studio in Bellevue, Washington. Visit justtalkstudios.com to learn more and book your session today.